Hello, and welcome back to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and today we are continuing on grappling with graphics. We are talking about the graphic attributes window. There's a few ways to get there. Let's go into the graphics tool, and the first way is to just select any graphic and go into the graphics menu, and you have this option called attributes, and you select that and you get to this graphic attributes window. This is what we're talking about. There's a couple other ways to get here with the graphics tool. If you right click or control click, you'll get the contextual menu, and you can choose edit graphic attributes, and it will do the same thing. Interestingly, I just noticed inconsistency here. This is graphic attributes, but in the graphics menu, it's just called attributes. Go figure. The other way to get there is with the selection tool, you can do the same thing. So just right click any graphics and you'll get the same contextual menu and it will take you to the same place. And the final way to get there actually is with the graphics tool. You can't do this with the selection tool. With the graphics tool, just double click a graphic and it will bring you to that graphic attributes, right? Now, if you're familiar with the text tool, you may know that there's a couple other ways to get there. In the text tool, if you just grab any text block here, you can press Shift Return to get to the frame attributes. Unfortunately, you cannot do that with the graphics window. Shift Return just doesn't do anything. And also with the text tool, if you have a graphic selected, you can also use the shortcut Shift Command T on a Mac to get to that frame attributes for the text block there. Again, there's no shortcut in the graphics menu under attributes. So even though the windows are very similar, there's just a little bit of an inconsistency about how to get to them between those two tools. So let's just go into the graphic attributes and take a little tour around. And I'm going to skip around this window a bunch. But starting at the top, you have this thing says type, and this is telling you that this is a PNG file. You also have this is a little grayed out right now because this isn't checked, but you have the path and you can select the path and you have this option to link to file. I'm going to briefly talk about this at the end of the video, but I'll come back to that. And then you have what's here, the height and the width. This is literally telling you the size of the graphic as it is in the file right now. The type and the height and the width, these are values. You can't do anything with it. It's just sort of information. But the height and the width will change if you actually, change the height and the width of the graphic. You can see it just got a little bit larger. The other way it will change is to actually change the scaling, which I'm going to talk about right now, actually. So the next part of the graphic attributes, again, I told you I'm going to skip around, is the bottom section where you have the scaling options. And this pretty much does exactly what you would think. It scales the graphic. Now, the thing to realize is that when the graphic gets embedded into Finale, the graphic itself is set at a size, right? Whatever that size may be, that's what it is. The only way to really resize it, according to Finale, technically speaking, is to scale it, right? And you have independent control over the horizontal and vertical scaling. Now, it's showing 34% in both of these values right here, which is indicating that the scaling has been proportional to the way it was originally designed before it came into Finale, right? You can actually change these manually. So if I do, 37 and 37 here, again, as long as you keep these numbers the same, the scaling will be proportional, and you'll see that it just gets a little bit bigger, right? We can go back. Of course, sometimes there's some rounding, so that's why it went back to 36, but we'll go back to 34 here, and you'll see it get just a little bit smaller. But also right below this, you'll see an option here called fixed percent. Now, this is very similar to the text tool where you have fixed size texts. The difference is that with a graphic tool, you're not actually changing the size, as I mentioned earlier, you're changing the scaling. So you have to fix the percentage, you have to fix the scaling. And the only thing that really happens when you have this set to fixed is that if you were to rescale the page, right? So I have this set to fixed right now, and I'm going to go into my resize tool. If I were to rescale this page to say 135%, watch the graphic in the upper right. It doesn't change, right? It stays exactly the same size. However, I'm just going to undo all of that and go here and uncheck fixed percent, right? And now what happens if I take my resize tool and resize the page to 135%, watch this graphic here, you'll see it will get larger with the page, right? So that's the difference between the fixed percent and the non-fixed percent. Sorry, let me go back here to the graphics tool. So that's the difference there. And again, this is sort of analogous to the text tool, except you don't have those options in the frame attributes, right? You don't have the scaling percentage or anything, but the difference is that with text, you can actually set the size of the text to have a fixed size or non-fixed size. I remember doing a long video about the difference between fixed size and fixed size and non-fixed size text in Finale, so you can kind of check that out if you're interested. But anyway, with the graphics tool, having that option set to fixed percent will allow the graphic to stay exactly the same regardless of the scaling of the page. Now, I should point out that when you go into a measure attached graphic as opposed to a page attached graphic, there is a little bit of a difference. You can still scale, and in this case you see that my horizontal and vertical scaling are different. That's just how I did this audio waveform. I stretched it out a little bit, but you'll notice that the fixed percent option here is grayed out. So with measure attached graphics, you don't have the option to fix the percentage. The percentages will always scale, whether if you scale the page or the system or the staff, etc. So that fixed percentage option is only available to page attached graphics. Incidentally, with that fixed percent option, there are some positioning options here, which I'm going to talk about very soon. If there are values here, the fixed percentage versus non-fixed percentage will actually affect these as well. So if it's set to fixed, then the positioning will be fixed. If it's not set to fixed, then the positioning, the horizontal and vertical offsets will scale according to how you're scaling the pages. So that's sort of a connection that's hard to see, but the fixed percentage will also affect the positioning here as well. So jumping around this window again, going back to the top here, you do have these attached to options, and you'll see two options here to start. You have attached to page or attached to measure. So obviously any page attached graphic is going to have this option selected, or if I go over here to this one, you'll see that it's measure, right? With the page attached graphics here, you do have the options for attaching it to a single page. You can attach it to all pages. You can attach it to a page range. And in this case, you could say if I wanted this on page 1 through 3, you could do that. Of course, with these types of fields in Finale, if you leave the through field blank, it literally means 1 through the end, whatever the end means, so basically infinity. You can also attach it to just left pages, whether that's 1 through the end or 1 through whatever. Same thing with right pages. Very similar to the text tool and how you attach to pages. With the measure attached graphics, you do have the option to attach it to a specific measure and a specific staff. So if I were to just change this to bassoon, you'll see that it would actually jump up to the bassoon staff there. And then finally, let's talk about the alignment and positioning. So I'm going to start with a measure attached graphics. You can see this is selected here. And you'll notice that the alignment options, horizontal, vertical, position, from, these are grayed out because these are only relative to the page. But you do have the positioning options, the horizontal and vertical offset options here, right? And let me just zoom in here a bunch so you can kind of see this. So the thing to know about the measure attached graphics and how it relates to the positioning is that you have to understand what it's positioning from. And the way this works is that the bottom left corner is attaching to the top left corner of the measure. This actually might be a little bit easier to explain if I attach this to the bassoon really quick. So you notice that the bottom left of the graphic is now attached to the bottom left of the measure. Well, that's because I have this negative vertical offset. If I were to set this to 0, actually let's set both of them to 0, you'll see that the bottom left corner is now attaching to the top left corner of the measure. Hopefully you can kind of make sense of that. So it's important to just know what the positioning is relative to. So I'm just going to undo that, and we'll get that there, and let's actually put it back in my playback staff. Right, so with the measure attached graphics, again, you only have the positioning. You don't have the alignment. With the page attached graphics, now you have your alignment options. You can align to the right, center, or left, the top, center, or bottom, and position it from the page edge or the page margin. I actually talked about this in the previous video, and it's the same options within the graphics menu right here. Left, center, right, top, center, bottom, position from page edge, and page margin. Works exactly the same. You can achieve the same thing within the graphic attributes window. And finally, with the page attached graphics, you also have this option here, right page alignment and positioning. You can choose a different setting or a different horizontal and different offset settings for right page positioning compared to left page positioning. Again, very similar to the text tool, and the best way to kind of demonstrate this is with this other mini logo here that I have set to the inside corner of page 2, and I want to put this on the rest of the pages. So let's just go in here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say page range, and I'm going to say 2 through the end. That will put it on every page going forward, right? But I don't want it on the right corner of every page. I want it on the inside corner, which is the right corner of the left page and the left corner of the right page, right? So again, just double click to get in there. And so what we're going to do is use right page positioning. Now on the right page, which is this page over here, we want this to be on the left. So my horizontal placement needs to be on the left. And if I just do that, that should do it. Now you'll see that it's on the inside edge, and I can even probably make this a little bit slicker with the positionings, right? So let's do the horizontal and vertical positioning. Again, these options here are now going to only be affecting the left pages, right? So that would be this second page here. So if I want to get this a little bit off of the corner, I could say, you know, -0.1 and -0.1 downwards for this version. And in the right page, which is now this setting, I can do the same thing, except the horizontal needs to be +0.1 because I want it to go to the right, but the vertical will still be -0.1. So if I just set this up like this, you'll see I'll just give a little air to the corners there. And that Conquering Finale mini logo will now be on the inside of every single page. So yeah, so that's how that right page alignment and positioning extra options work. Again, if this is unchecked, it's basically going to use the main alignment and positioning options on every page. But with this checked, there will be a difference between right and left pages. All right, now finally, let me talk about, let me get back into the graphic attributes window. Let me talk about this option called link to file. And there's also an option in the graphics menu here called check graphics, and this brings you to this whole other window, and this is related to linking to file. You'll note that all of my graphics are listed here, and you'll see that they're all embedded, and all of this, you know, link to file is unchecked. So here's the thing. When you link to file, what this basically means is that you're linking a graphics file outside of Finale into the file. Theoretically, this has the benefit of being able to then edit the graphic outside of Finale and have the edits appear correctly in Finale, right? So again, you're keeping the graphics file separate from the Finale file. In theory, this is actually really nice for a number of reasons. Again, you could edit the graphic however you need to in an outside program and not, you know, worry about it not updating or having to re-embed it into Finale and everything. The other benefit to this is actually sort of a drawback to embedding the graphics. And the thing about embedding graphics in Finale files is that with every graphic you embed, it adds file size. Now, this is not a huge deal in today's computers. I mean, these graphics take up so little space, you know, relative to the terabytes of data that we now have available on our hard drive spaces. This was probably a much bigger deal, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago in Finale, when hard drive space was at a premium and file space was important too. It was sort of important to keep the file sizes smaller in Finale. So if you were using graphics, having the graphics outside of the program, not taking up file space for the file, was actually really good. However, in the modern versions of Finale, and I really have no idea how long this has been the case, this link to file option is so broken. I can't even describe to you. I was literally preparing another video to happen after this video specifically for this option. I was going to show you how to do all this stuff with the check graphics window, everything you can do, linking to file, you know, editing outside, everything. But it's so buggy, and like every time I was experimenting with it, just things went haywire and the graphics were not working. They would not update. It just does not work the way it's supposed to. So, you know, this is one of those cases where the function exists in Finale, you know, literally, but practically it doesn't. So my advice is you should never link to the file like this. Just embed the graphics. Again, with modern computers, modern file sizes, it doesn't really matter anymore. You know, you don't have the benefit of being able to edit the graphic later, but, you know, if you need to edit it, then, you know, edit another graphic and then re-embed it, you know, not that big of a deal. It's just a sort of broken feature in Finale, and that's where I'm going to leave it. I was literally going to do a whole other video about it, but then I decided it's just not worth it because it just doesn't work. So anyway, so that is graphic attributes. Hopefully this has helped. I think I've got one more video to do. We're going to talk about exporting graphics next. So thanks for watching this one. I really appreciate it. As always, please don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.